My twin sister, May, and I are identical. At the end of our first year of college, I was in a car accident, and I ended up with a facial scar and major trauma. I started seeing a therapist because of the nightmares and the fact that I was panicking any time I got into a car. That led to me realizing there were some deeper issues, which we worked on. As part of that work, I got a physical. Started working with a dietitian to fix my diet and the smorgasbord of vitamin deficiencies it caused. I started working out, strength training 3 days and sprints or hit on 3 with our older sis. By the end of our first year of college, we had each gained about 30 pounds. By the end of the next year, I had lost half of it, but I was smaller at 134 pounds than my previous 120 because of the muscle mass. And that's been my size for the past half-decade. I found a new beautician, and she gave me long layers to make my natural curls be curls instead of waves of frizz. I always wanted but that my old one said would look bad and refused. I stopped bleaching it and let it go its natural dark blonde / light brown. I stopped spray tanning. Again, that's been my look for the past 5 years. I live in a rural area, and the internet isn't great. Things like FaceTime just aren't options, and I can't post a lot of pics on social media /see of it. This is relevant because a big issue is that May didn't see me over the quarantine. We talked on the phone a couple times a week, but it mostly revolved around her wedding planning. She got engaged before the Rona put us on lockdown. I wasn't her mo, so mostly I was being told decisions, not involved in the process. When it came to the bridesmaids' dresses, May sent our sister, SIL, and me a link and told us to get it in our size. Same with hair and makeup, but we had to arrange for a beautician because May's wouldn't do more than 4. And she wanted her friends at the appointment with her. Except she didn't do a bachelorette party with us, she did with her friends, or rehearsal dinner. So May didn't see any of us until the start of the wedding. She was livid. Apparently, she thought we would have stopped working out because of the Rona, even though we did it at home. Or that we would have stopped when she announced her engagement, so we didn't upstage her. She was mad because I didn't try to hide my scar and didn't tan, thought it would be implied. She made several snide remarks before throwing a drunk temper tantrum at the reception, basically accusing the 3 of us. But me ESP of trying to upstage her. I don't have that excuse /C I was a DD so sober, but I, quite famously, have a low tolerance for angry or crying drunks. I told her, if you're so insecure, you should have got off your ass instead of expecting us to lay on ours to make yours look better. It only got worse. Our family is on my side /C I didn't start it or do anything. But his family and her friends are giving me shit. I have been with my partner for 7 years. We initially met online, and after meeting in person a few times, and realizing our affection for one another, we found it promising to move in together. I moved from California to Pennsylvania to be with him throughout graduate school. All was seemingly well during this time. I have never really had any reason to not trust him. I encouraged him to very much so, to try his best to make friends, or to explore hobbies on his own outside of the various ones we share, because I have my own passions. And I found we connected most when we met in the middle through conversations about these passions, through the act of explaining or showcasing what we've taken in or learned. Throughout these 7 years, he has struggled with very low self-esteem. And though I don't necessarily think of myself as the pillar of self-love, the depth of mine doesn't reach the low perception of his self-value. Because of this, he has seen and stopped seeing both a counselor and a therapist, and has been on medication to help for the last 6 months. Things were seemingly well between us, and continued to be pretty fluid. We continued to share things, and take long walks, and were pretty open-ended about where we stood in the relationship. If one was feeling a bit of an ebb, the other would pick up more of a share, and vice versa. However, things took a bit of a dip about 2 days ago when I felt the ebb and asked him about it. Initially, he said there was really nothing wrong. And perhaps I was just feeling this way because with our schedules we haven't been able to see one another for long periods of time like we are used to, which is true. But the feeling continued to irk me, and when I asked about it a second time, he confessed to me. He had begun talking to another girl from another country via Instagram direct messages. And though things between she and him never crossed the boundaries of platonic friendship, He really loved the initial rush of someone asking him questions about his favorite movie, his favorite album, his favorite book. All things he and I already know very well about one another. I asked if he'd sent any selfies, or anything risque, and he said no, though I can't confirm, because he deleted the messages. A good deal of me believes him, because of how open he was about the initial conversations to begin with. We slept apart, and I just felt really confused the entire night, because I couldn't really resonate with wanting that sort of attention from someone else. If anything, his yearning for that type of attention sort of hurt. It felt like I wasn't doing enough, or giving enough. The next morning, though I don't have an Instagram, and am not on the app, I went to check his using the desktop version, and found that posts where he once called me the love of his life, or a specific post with a gift I gave him that once said, "Greatest gift from the greatest girl," were still on his profile, but the words, girlfriend, or love of my life, were completed erased. With this realization, my confusion and hurt turned to very real heartache. I called him and asked if he had deleted these words from the specific posts, and with shame, he said yes, he did. When I asked why, he said it was because he just didn't want the attention from the girl asking him about himself to be disrupted if she found out he was in a long-term relationship. I guess this is where I asked the obvious and questioned why someone who is just asking about your favorite books, movies, etc., would be driven away by the fact that you have a girlfriend. And he said he didn't know why he did it, and that it was a massive mistake. At the risk of seeming toxic, and I will take full accountability for seeming so or being so, I asked him to please deactivate his Instagram for the time being while we sort through this, his Twitter as well. He did, and though I was feeling a bit of relief about that, I couldn't help but feel a bit saddened that he didn't choose to do that on his own for the benefit of our relationship. He had to wait for me to ask. Which again, just made me feel like such a toxic and controlling partner. Two things I always strive to be so far from. When he got home from work, we discussed everything at massive length, and he continued to swear up and down that these conversations pertained strictly to music, movies, and books, and he didn't have interest in her. Just interest in the initial rush of the attention he was receiving. We read a few articles, and he broke things down to me as his self-esteem has never been lower. Despite his career as a doctor being at a high, and his finances in order, he felt things with his music weren't taking off. And with that came a feeling that he wasn't special, and it was nice for someone to make him feel that way. I felt shame and asked him if I wasn't doing enough or giving enough to him to make him feel that way. He said, I defiantly was. But my love, and attention and affection, became a pillar he could rely on, and got used to, so with new attention came a rush. And he liked that. I asked him if he wanted to be single, and find that rush in dating new people. And he kept insisting that that's so far from what he wants. He wants to remain a couple, and do all he can to work on these things together. Though I can't help but correlate that feeling he enjoys with the feeling of a first date. Which hurts, of course. I told him I didn't really see how we could move past this because there was nothing much for me to make an attempt to work on moving forward. This seems to be a self-stemming problem that I emphasize with, but just don't want to be on the receiving end of the counter effects. So though it is incredibly uneasy to begin to think of how difficult it'll be to begin again, it is just as difficult to think about how difficult it would be to stay and try to rebuild back up an issue that I feel like just a bystander. When it comes to this has all been very painful, and if this comes to an end I just want it to be as civil and as possible. He deserves to love himself, but not at the expense of the love we have between us. I deserve love that is stable and comforting, and not laced with newfound paranoia. Despite this all, my heart is still very much in this, of course, and he has been very vocal about how it was just one mistake. Nothing happened, we can work through this, etc. And I secretly keep hoping he will make a step, any step really, to showcase these words and implement action, seek a new therapist. Find the two of us a relationship counselor, buy a book on self-help or on how couple conquer affairs, anything at all. Without me having to be the one to ask him. I just want him to have that yearning that he continues to say he has, but instead of saying it, I was him to show me. That makes me irrational or just plain dumb. I believe to be in a state where I can handle either answer, or something completely different just the same. Do all think I'm blowing something completely out of proportion? given how this was an exchange of conversation between him and another girl for just a few days. And his erasure of me on his profile was only for about 2 days? This has been a first in this relationship. This has been a first in my life, truthfully. I just felt completely vulnerable and isolated. I travel for work and my employer allows me to spend up to $100 / day on food. If I don't use it, I don't get to pocket the money. When traveling, I make sure to use the full $100 every day, so I'm eating very well. My wife is upset with me because I get to eat out for every meal at least 2 weeks a month. She says it isn't fair and I should just go to the grocery store and bring back food to my hotel. I've explained to her that it doesn't make sense since I don't get to keep the money if I don't use it. Every evening when I call her, she wants to know exactly what I ate. She can see the credit card statements reimbursed by employer, so she knows how much I spent. She'll see I spent $75 on dinner and start freaking out about how wasteful I am. I take her out for dinner at least 2 times a week when I'm in town, and she goes out several times a week with friends when I'm not in town. This whole thing just seems irrational, and it is really putting a strain on our relationship. I haven't gained any weight and am in great shape. I focus on quality of food much more than quantity. Most hotels have a small gym and / or a pool. I can't buy groceries or gift cards to bring home. It is against policy. I submit pictures of the receipts, so this wouldn't work. I track all my expenses and submit receipts for reimbursement weekly. I float the money for 7 days max. Usually I have around $3,000 to $4,000 in expenses per week, which we can make work without any issues since I pay for all my food, airfare, hotels, and car rentals myself. I collect an enormous amount of points and other perks. These points allow me to go on at least 2 vacations a year with my wife for next to nothing. We went to Spain early this year for 2 weeks and spent under $400 for the entire trip. Not using a company card is one of the best perks. Using a different credit card is not on the table. My wife and I have all our finances together. We both think it's important to be 100% transparent with money. We don't have any kids. She started a business selling Mary Kay a few years ago. She is working really hard to expand and find new customers. She likes the idea of being her own boss, and I try to do everything I can to support her. I'm rarely gone for 2 weeks at a time. Sometimes I'm gone for only 2 days. On average, a trip lasts 5 days and I go on 3 a month. A lot are saying Mary Kay is a pyramid scheme. I don't really know that much about the details of the business. I see a lot of women selling makeup, candles, and diet-related products, so I thought this was normal. We've put in around $50,000 over the past 2 years. Most of the money goes towards buying inventory and training seminars. I'll have to do some research to see what is going on. My day-to-day is anything but glamorous. I've spent more time in the airport than I even care to think about. Things go wrong often on the logistical side. My work can be very stressful, but I've gotten very good at managing the workload. My boss encourages us to use the full expense amount. He understands the stress involved traveling so much. He's actually working on increasing the amount to $140 / day because of inflation. One of my best friends lives in a different country. We met years ago online and have talked almost daily to what is approaching a decade. We have both flown back and forth once or twice a year to see the other and hang out, and we've always been there for each other's big moments. She found out last year that she is expecting her first child, and it was amazing news for us all. I was so happy for her to start the family I know she's always wanted with her husband. She came to visit a few months into her pregnancy and asked me to be the baby's godmother. I was over the moon. While we live an 8-hour plane ride from each other. I do have a job that gives me decent vacation allowance and deals with certain airlines that makes visiting manageable. I knew that I could be there for her, and told her that whenever she was ready for someone outside of the family to be there, I would make the trip. Last month, she had her baby shower. And I only found out when I saw on Instagram a mutual friend who lives in the same city as me had surprised her at the shower. I hadn't been invited. I was a little hurt and surprised, but it was the busiest month of the year for the company I work for, and I knew she knew that. So I figured that could be the reason, sent my gift by airmail and said congratulations. However, now she's reached out to me and told me that she has asked another friend, the same person who went to the baby shower, to be the baby's godmother, and that she only wants her child to have one. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I was heartbroken and felt a bit betrayed. For 6 months I have been excited to take on the role. My own godmother lives in New Zealand and has done for most of my life, so I knew it could work. M knew how to stay in contact and be a part of the child's life while living in another country. But now she's taken back her offer and chosen someone else. I wouldn't be so upset if she had chosen someone who lived closer. But she has replaced me with someone who lives in the same city as me, so it's not a distance thing. We have been friends for years. I have been there with updates, support, and love her whole pregnancy. And at no point was there any clue she had changed her mind until the baby shower a few weeks ago. I don't know if I should confront her, tell her I'm hurt, or just accept her decision. It's her baby. And I would never want to force her into a decision she wasn't happy with. I just don't know what to do or say to her now. I want to let her know I'm sad that I'm missing out, but I don't want to sound like I'm whining. And I want to know why she changed her mind, but I'm scared the answer will just upset me.